Hey there, A's Day fans. Welcome to our Friday edition of our show. Hope you all had a wonderful and happy Thanksgiving. We're happy to be back here behind the mic talking everything athletics baseball. Today is Friday, November 28th. We got a good show for you. Not much in terms of the transactional side of things in the news, but the A's did continue to add depth to their potential bullpen down the road in 2026. As they signed a minor league contract with right-handed pitcher Wander Suero. We'll be sure to do a little bit of a deep dive into his pathway at the professional level and how he may equate into the 2026 A's roster decisions, bullpen decisions, all of that good stuff. Then we're going to have a little bit of fun in the middle of today's show as we wanted to, within the news with the trade of Brandon Nimmo being sent from the Mets to the Rangers in exchange for Marcus Semien, kind of a one-for-one based on a financial and positional area of need, something that definitely sent some shockwaves through the baseball world. Kind of wanted to come up with three different trade hypotheticals that could potentially impact both the A's and the trade partner that they would line up with that would make similar shockwaves. We'll take a deep dive into those hypotheticals and what that would look like. And then before getting on out of here for the weekend, we're going to continue on with our series of this player in A's history, taking it back as promised to the 1950s, where we'll be talking about pitcher Bobby Shantz. Got a good show for you. We're excited to get on to it. Holy Toledo, let's go A's. All right there, A's Day fans. Thank you again for tuning in to this Friday edition of our show. Before we continue on with our Friday show for you, just want to give you a few reminders of where you can find us outside of our podcast episodes that are available twice per week. Wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, continue to like, download, and give us those listens. Wherever you do, A's Day is going to appear there too as well, whether that's Apple Music, Spotify Music, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, so many others that we appear on. Be sure to continue to listen to us on those platforms. In addition, check out our social media channels on Instagram at A's Day Baseball Podcast, on X, formerly known as Twitter, at A's Day Baseball. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel for video editions of our episodes just like these, along with player interviews, baseball destination content, and so much more that's going to continue to grow in 2026. And be sure to check us out if you want to become an official subscriber of A's Day. Check out our Patreon site, patreon.com/A's Day. For just $2 a month, you'll be entered to win monthly A's Day t-shirt giveaways, A's autographed memorabilia, future A's game tickets, and so much more as we are able to grow this platform collaboratively. All right, let's get to our first topic of discussion. The A's did sign a pitcher to continue to add to the depth of options as compared to what they had available to them last season. So it's good to see the A's are learning from their past mistakes. Not that it was anything super glaring, and you can never truly prepare for a stretch that you may see the team losing 20 out of 21 games. That's just something that doesn't happen regularly. So you got to understand, it does happen once. You got to make sure it doesn't happen again. So the other day, the A's signed right-handed pitcher Wander Suero to a minor league deal and have assigned him to AAA Las Vegas. Most likely that is where he's going to start the 2026 campaign. The 34-year-old hails from the Dominican Republic and has a career .496 ERA and 199 2/3 innings pitched at the major league level. He appeared in 5 games for Atlanta in 2025 and put up a .222 ERA with 64 strikeouts and 48 2/3 innings at the AAA level last season. This signals a continuation of adding depth pieces to the bullpen later in the season. That's just what you're going to need to be a successful organization from pole to pole. The depth truly was tested early, so I think they want to make sure they were prepared this time around. I think you saw a lot, especially during that end of May, June stretch. You saw there was a lot of bussing back and forth between the AAA level and the Major League team to kind of try to find the right formula to get out of that rut. It was a little bit too late, but I think this year they want to at least have more options that they can have their eyes on, like a Nick Anderson, now like a Wander Suero, guys like that necessarily might not break out of spring training camp with the major league team, but these are guys that have major league experience, not necessarily always the most successful in terms of recent performances, but they do have the foundations of making it to the major leagues, pitching meaningful innings at some point, and if they can tap into some version of that, gaining some confidence at the AAA level and being ready to make an impact if called upon at the major league level, could be something, a smaller detail that could pay off larger dividends in the long run. Everyone has a different outcome and pathway, but that is one outcome that could potentially happen on bringing in guys on very team-friendly minor league deals. So it's good that the A's are at least keeping their options open. And Suero is someone that, again, like Nick Anderson, not necessarily the same amount of closing experience or as much of a MLB impact as Anderson has had in his career. But Suero, early on this year, he made his major league debut in 2018 with the Nationals. And then that following season in 2019, he was tasked with being the setup man behind Sean Doolittle, where he appeared in a team high 78 games in 2019 on their way to winning the World Series that year. Though he did only make 4 appearances during that World Series run, he definitely was a big part of why they were able to get there and complete the task at hand. He then from there bounced around as an undrafted free agent the next following years. Didn't make it back to the majors from that point until he signed with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim in 2022, where he made just 11 appearances from there over the next 3 seasons between the Dodgers, Astros, and Braves as of last season. He hasn't done any favors with himself in terms of recency, so that's why I've talked about having that foundation of that postseason success and consistent high leverage success, but that was a long time ago in terms of baseball years. So I don't think the A's are expecting for him to dial back and be able to find that guy, but if he can find something between that and what he's shown over the last 3 seasons at the big league level, I think he could have something there, a depth piece that could help you eat up some innings later on in the season. It's a fine, worthwhile addition, in my opinion, but I think at the end of the day, still waiting for that first big move to really catapult the feeling inside of that A's clubhouse in terms of their bullpen group. I think they're a group that definitely banded together after that Mason Miller trip and have a lot of confidence, being the second best bullpen in terms of ERA over the second half of that season from that point. So I think there's a lot of confidence in that room heading into 2026 that they can continue to get the job done. So it's good that it seems like there is going to be more depth than there has been in the last couple of seasons. But at the end of the day, I still think you need someone to be that anchor, someone that can set that tone, be that definitive leader. I think that starts with bringing in a high leverage closer, but there's definitely plenty of relievers with veteran experience. I believe they're out there in the free agent market. And if you line up with the right trade partner, there could be something out there that you can go hunt for too as well. This was a major culprit for that 1-20 stretch, not being able to have enough guys to either come in and protect the lead or keep the opposing offense at bay to give the A's offense an opportunity to swing their way back into games. Whatever the situation was, it just wasn't working. Definitely would love a return here to form from Suero in his age 34 season. But like I said, I don't think you can bank on it. This was just something of note. There haven't been many transactions completed by the A's as compared to just 3 or 4 minor league deals that have been done so far. I think as the calendar flips to December, you're going to see teams all across the league get a lot more active, especially once the winter meetings come and go. That's when you see the flurry of moves really start to take off. So just wanted to bring that to our attention. That may be a name that you hear at some point in 2026. Hopefully it's for the good and not just based out of desperate measures of having a ton of ineffectiveness at the major league level or injuries. Hopefully it's just adding in a guy like Suero just because of how well he's performing at AAA this season. So best of luck to him. Newest A's to the organization. And looking forward to seeing if this minor league deal pans out to a whole lot. All right, let's have some fun. Like I mentioned at the top of our show, get to the second topic and discuss 3 crazy trades that can flip the franchise on its head. So let's have some fun and let's make sure at the end of the day, these could be good, these could be bad. My thinking around these hypothetical trades is that both teams benefit greatly in the long run. Now, a couple of these trades are going to have names in there that have been rumored that other teams have been interested in trading with the A's if this name was included. In reality, I don't think this player, and we'll get to this in a couple minutes or so, I don't think he would actually be involved in a trade. I think they like this guy too much, especially his age. What he put on full display over the course of a full season last year, it seems like he's finally putting it together, and he's going to ascend. Still years until we get to his actual prime. But it's going to be things like that make you perk up a little bit, turn your head, and say, what? I want to make sure that we're pretty clear. Again, these are hypotheticals, and these aren't trades that I necessarily want the A's to do. I'm just saying that these are three moves that came to mind that I believe would have that similar reaction. It just, the creative juices got flowing when I heard news of the Marcus Semien and Brandon Nimmo trade. That was a trade they had been discussing behind the scenes in terms of the Mets and Rangers landing a trade like that. But in terms of the public perception, that came out of nowhere. And it was at the conclusion of a weekend, so what a way to kick off the new week with two names of significant weight being swapped for one another for a couple of reasons, whether it's part of it's financials, but then also both teams needed an area of need where I think the Mets needed to upgrade their infield, and the Rangers were looking for a left-handed hitting outfielder, a bat to improve there too as well. So I think that's a trade that could potentially benefit both sides in the long run. I know with the Mets, that Semien trade should be the start of other areas they need to improve upon, but this isn't talking Mets. So, well, I'm sure we'll talk about that more on our Bases, Barrels, and Ball Players episode, or a podcast, which we have already on a previous episode. Go check us out. But back to the A's focus here. I want to make sure I'm not advocating that these should be done, but I'm saying these are the type of moves that could have a soaring impact in a positive or negative way. But at the end of the day, I think this may cover both teams' needs of how they're going to improve their success rate in 2026 and beyond. So let's get to them. The first trade, the two trade partners that I had in mind, so obviously they're all going to be the A's. But I think the A's and Marlins could line up on a trade here. So take a listen to this, and I'll explain where our mindset goes from there. In this trade, the Marlins would receive Tyler Soderstrom, Henry Bolte, and Mason Barnett. And in exchange, the A's would receive Edward Cabrera and Yuri Lopez. Now that would move the needle on both sides. Let's start with what the Marlins would receive here with Tyler Soderstrom, they having to part ways. Now, what you're getting in the deal if you're the A's is two high-end or high ceiling guys in terms of rotation type arms that are very team friendly in terms of contract and are still on the ascension side of things, especially with Lopez, who would only be entering his third full year of professional baseball because he missed 2024 due to injury. But then you get someone in Cabrera that he's improved upon it, but is still seeking consistency with his command. But he's got an electric right arm. Putting those two guys in the A's rotation significantly boosts that. You have to give some to get some. So the reason why I had this, with the A's sending Tyler Soderstrom and Henry Bolte, the Marlins, they seem to be a pitching factory, and they have all these young arms that continue to come through their system, or whether it's been through previous trades. They do a very good job in that area. As an organization, they have other areas there a lot left to be desired that they could improve upon in terms of overall team dynamic. But it seems like the group they have in place now, the Marlins, are moving in the right direction and are trying to operate a major league franchise the right way. So hats off to them. In this scenario, the Marlins, they have a plethora of depth in terms of starting pitching and bullpen pitching as well. Where they need to improve upon is their offense. They seem to, although there was a little bit of a boom from their offense from the performance of Kyle Stowers, who they got originally from Baltimore, is really flourishing into one of their superstars in the middle of their order, who they're working on an extension currently. What they need is to keep adding upon and increasing the depth in their lineup to supplement the pitching that is going to give them a quality start more times than not. The pitching that is going to be able to preserve a lead, especially when they get to their closer Phillips, who had an outstanding season last year. So there's a lot to like for the Marlins on the pitching side of things. And they even had an opportunity going into the last week, I believe even up until the last weekend of the season, where they were technically mathematically still alive for that third and final National League wildcard spot. So I think with where they're at, they got to be feeling pretty good about themselves. They played some great stretches of baseball throughout 2025 and showed a lot of glimpses of this team playing fundamentally sound baseball, where if they can supplement a little bit more consistent offense with their pretty deep depth in terms of pitching, I think the Marlins are going to, you're kind of seeing them ascend into that similar category of where the A's are at. So I think in this scenario, both teams want to continue hitting that upward trajectory in terms of getting closer and closer, being a postseason a postseason contender and a consistent postseason product. That in this trade, they're immediately getting an impact outfield bat in Soderstrom, the Marlins, but they're also getting someone that was the Gold Glove finalist in left field too as well. So they're getting a pretty complete all-around player there, and he's only age 23. So he's under team control, a very team-friendly contract. Again, if the Marlins are in that mindset of wanting to extend their players internally before they hit the free agent market, that's someone that would be in that, fall in that camp too as well. So there's a lot to like there. And then they get Bolte as more for the future. Someone that could crack the Marlins lineup, I would say, as soon as this year, because I think he's knocking at the door. Had a very productive 2025 at the minor league level as one of the A's top prospects. If he slides over to the Marlins in this deal with all the tools that he brings to the table, he may get an opportunity to win a job out of spring training. Not that he wouldn't get that same opportunity with the A's. I just think the A's have a lot more depth at the outfield position, that Bolte may be a little bit blocked here as compared going to a place like Miami, where they're looking for as much offensive help as they can. Who knows how it all shakes out? Maybe he wins a starting job over there. And then including Mason Barnett in this deal, since the Marlins are giving up two arms here, want to have someone that supplements and projects to be a future rotation guy too as well. I think what the Marlins have, this is just more as a depth piece. Would have an opportunity to win a job at the back end of their rotation. Again, I think where the A's outfield room is so crowded here, I think the Marlins pitching depth is pretty crowded over there. Again, they can always use improvement there. And obviously in this situation would look internally for candidates or giving a guy like a Barnett an opportunity to win a job too as well. On the A side of things, love this. Edward Cabrera and Yuri Lopez, that slots in as two middle-of-the-rotation type guys. And then all of a sudden, you got a rotation that looks something like a Sevy, Cabrera, Lopez, and Morales. That's pretty solid to supplement a top 10 offense. All of a sudden, you can start dreaming a little bit bigger because now you have more guys that you can rely upon to take the ball every fifth day and give you a quality start. And then some of those guys that were going to be in the running for a starting rotation spot in the A's rotation for 2026 slot in potentially to more of that swingman role and take a little bit more pressure off of a bullpen that doesn't have to be relied upon as much if you have guys like maybe a JT Ginn or a Jack Perkins that can come into the bullpen, give you 3 innings at a time, 4, whatever the situation may be. On certain days of that long 162 slog, it would be nice to not have to call on certain guys every other night to have them cooked by the time August, September comes around. So I think there would be a lot to like here in this hypothetical trade. Would hate to see Soderstrom go because I think he's so young, and I feel like he's becoming the true professional. I enjoy his at-bats. I enjoy all the aspects of his game, so that's why this is a hypothetical. But I do think this is a trade that both franchise in the long run could potentially benefit from. Okay, this second trade would be a much bigger swing for the fences, in my opinion. And I think there's going to be teams that would have a lot more to offer in this park. But with the reports of Tariq Skubal being potentially available, entering into the final year of his contract in Detroit, the Tigers are reportedly concerned that they won't be able to match the value that Skubal is going to command if he were to either hit the free agent market after next season or if there was a discussion of an internal extension that they might be miles apart. So in this hypothetical, if the Tigers are out there shopping Skubal, A's would have to give up a lot here. So in this situation, what I came up with would be the Tigers receiving, again, Tyler Soderstrom, I think, would have to be involved here. Colby Thomas, Gage Jump, and Braden Nett. You could include a draft pick here, too, as well, if you want to sweeten the deal. Take on some of the money of his final contract. Not that Detroit necessarily is in a huge pressing financial need, but I think every little bit would help to sweeten the pot here. But I think it would have to be at least that. And maybe it would be one more player involved, maybe another prospect. But with a trade like that, Detroit, again, is someone that is seeking to improve their offensive line of depth. I think, again, you get a guy like Soderstrom that controls the strike zone well, hits the ball well to all fields, and I think would play a great left field at Comerica Park. I think that's what it's still called in Detroit. And then Colby Thomas has all the raw talent and ability and all the traits to be an all-star someday at the major league level. He showed flashes of his light tower power and his gifted right arm from right field. The fact of the matter is he still has some development to do in terms of fine-tuning his offensive approach. His strikeout percentage was alarmingly high. There's a lot of swing and miss in his game, and I think he's very inconsistent offensively. When he's going, it's scorching hot, and when he's cold, it's pretty ice cold. So I think and that's going to be the case with a lot of younger hitters that are first getting their taste at the major league level, that they're going to have to find a pathway to success. It's not always going to be a straight line. It's all about managing those peaks and valleys. So I think there's a lot of upside to Thomas that plenty of teams would like in terms of being able to continue to develop and eventually make a consistent impact at the major league level. And then I think Detroit here would love this move, being able to add 2 younger arms that project to be in major league rotations potentially next season, but if at the latest in 2027. But 2 of the A's top pitching prospects, Gage Jump and Braden Nett, would have to be involved here. Wouldn't want to involve Jamie Arnold, their first-round draft pick, because I think that's someone that projects to be an impact starter in the A's rotation in a few years, and would hate to give up on your number 1 draft pick from a draft so soon before really getting a full taste of what Arnold can be like as a professional. In this situation, it seems like Gage Jump has been pretty dominant at each level of each minor league level, and I'm sure he is going to be in the discussion and get an opportunity. I would say he would get an invitation to big league camp with an opportunity to win a job in that rotation. I don't necessarily think he is going to win it out of camp, but don't be surprised if you see Jump make some starts in 2026. And who knows what kind of jump he makes in his development through his off-season training. If he comes in and has an electric camp, sometimes you just force your way in. If you're that good getting hitters out, there's going to be a role for you. So I think that's just a matter of timing and see how he performs coming out of the gate. But he is someone that is knocking on the door of breaking Major League camp, as is Braden Nett, too, as well. I think he's someone that is also going to factor into the 2026 Major League roster. But in this situation, if you're the A's, you're getting your game 1 of every series start. You're getting your ace. And then you have an opportunity from there, if he really is enjoying his time playing for the A's in their organization. Now, I know you in this situation, if you bring Skubal over, you only are guaranteed to have him for the 2026 season. So if he is coming over in a deal like that, you got to hope that Skubal is going to help you make a big push towards that postseason, because that's for a couple reasons here. You got to show bringing in a guy like that, the back-to-back Cy Young Award winner in the American League. If you bring in someone like that, you have to be serious and you have to be competitive. Because on the financial side of things, if you get into the postseason dance, that's going to allocate more resources for you to get an opportunity to either A, extend them in season, or B, have more resources to be able to re-sign him to a long-term deal if he wants to, no matter what, test the free agent market. So I think that's what competition does on a couple aspects of things. But then also signals to other free agents, if you bring in a guy like that and the A's are truly that close to being contenders, that gets contagious, and other guys are going to want to be a part of that, bringing the A's back to relevancy. If they are going to be a regular postseason contender, especially, you're going to have that selling point of being in Vegas very soon. So the plans say that market may appeal to some guys more than if they were going to be in Sacramento for the long term. So just to keep some things in mind there. But I think it's going to garner this type of deal. Skubal, he's earned it. He's that quality and type of player, but wanted to have some fun here. In all honesty, I think if a trade were to go down here, Skubal would end up in a bigger market. I think he would end up with one of the New York teams or maybe even the Dodgers. That would be crazy. But there would be plenty of other teams that would line up to be trade partners that I think the A's can come up with a pretty good package. And there are other guys that they could make available if the Tigers were interested. But that would be a start. And I'd be really curious to see if they could actually be in advanced talks for something like that and what it truly would look like. Because here, again, we've got no inside information of what a deal like this would actually take. This is all perspective based on some hypotheticals that have been offered via other teams in terms of what they would have to give up to land someone like Skubal. So kind of try to line up with that from the A's scope and see what it would take. So something like this, again, that would be, hey, we can all dream, and that would be something, seeing him be the ace for this club in 2026. That puts you at the forefront for sure that there should be an expectation to win the American League West. And you couple him, setting the tone for this rotation that's drastically improved, along with the top 10 offense, you should be in every discussion of the AL West Division crown without a doubt. All right, and let's get to our third and final hypothetical trade that we are going to discuss today. The two trade partners, they've done business before, would be between the A's and the Cincinnati Reds. So in this scenario, this would be, so again, this is a hypothetical. I actually would not want this to happen, but this is a move. Again, I think it would be need for need here. The A's would receive left-handed pitcher Andrew Abbott and catcher Tyler Stevenson in exchange for the Reds receiving Brent Rooker and Shea Langoliers. Crazy, right? But think about it. The Reds are desperate looking to add to their lineup in a very stadium hitter-friendly park. So you're thinking the Reds should always have an abundance of hitters. In fact, they're seeking some outfield help. I know Rooker would be more of a DH, but he can play outfield here and there, and he's definitely not a liability, I would say, when he's out there. But if you needed to rotate him in and out of that DH spot, you can. But then at that point for the Reds, you're getting an immediate top to middle of the order bat, 30-plus home runs, a perennial all-star at this point, it seems like. And I think Rooker would slide in well to that order and continue to mash home runs in that ballpark too as well. And then they would get a boost because I think Stevenson and Langoliers are pretty similar in terms of level of player. They get a boost on the offensive side of things, where, Langoliers is coming off a 30 home run season. If, again, like I mentioned, if you weren't talking about Cal Raleigh and the historic season that he had up in the Pacific Northwest, the league would have heard a lot more of what Langoliers did this past season. And I think if the Reds bring in two guys like that, to a perennial all-star and then another guy that, in my opinion, should be an all-star in Langoliers, that takes a team from the Reds that just snuck their way into the postseason, in my opinion, to having an opportunity to win the National League Central. That seems a little bit, I think, up in the air. Now, I think Milwaukee's always going to return a team in terms of this iteration of the Brewers that's going to continue to try to repeat as NL Central champions or be perennial playoff appearances. They've got a great baseball philosophy up there, a great baseball operations department, so I don't think there'll be much trouble there. But then from there, the Cubs had a good season last year, but what are they going to do this offseason? The Cardinals don't seem to have any direction. And the Pirates, they were improved, but are they truly going to bring in impact bats and players around Skeens and the foundation of that team to really ascend to a Central crown? I don't think it would happen this year. So the Reds should have every right to be in discussion to win this division crown and, at the minimum, at least get back into the NL postseason dance and hopefully stay around a little bit longer. But they've got a plethora of young pitching talent that I think they'd be happy, or not necessarily happy, but they'd be willing to part with a guy like Abbott if it meant bringing in two middle-of-the-order bats to boost their offense significantly. And then on the A side of thing, again, a guy like Abbott, a top-of-the rotation type guy to supplement a rotation that could use some more depth. And I think, again, you're filling a need on both sides here. At the end of the day, I do think the Reds would win a little bit more at the end of this deal. But I like Stevenson. I think he's a solid catcher here. Langoliers, you don't know what it's going to be like in terms of the time when they're going to have contract extension talks. with him being a Scott Boras client, it may be a little bit more difficult to retain his services. I know you got at least a couple more years of team control there, but he may garner more than expected by the time he hits free agent or is scheduled to hit free agency. And then a guy like Brent Rooker, would hate to see him go. He's the Iron Man. He's someone that is the leader, I'd say the leader in the locker room. He's someone that's going to give you a consistent physical and mental effort day in and day out. And a lot of guys definitely look up to him. Again, having that productivity to the middle, to the top of your order, be out of town would be a tough blow for the A's to recover from. But I do think they have quite a bit of depth in this offensive lineup that they would be missed, but I think they could recover and find productivity elsewhere. Because I do think their biggest area of need is the pitching side of things. That needs to dramatically improve. And while I think the lineup would take a couple of hits here, if you lose a couple of guys like Rooker and Langoliers, you would be improving your rotation. And this free agent class is loaded with options out there. You can always swing trades. And you have internal candidates too as well that are looking to blossom and continue their forward development. So that wraps our 3 trade hypotheticals. I don't think any of these trades would actually happen. I just wanted to have the conversation and just kind of see what it would sound like once it would hit the airwaves. I would like maybe the one with the Marlins, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't want to see a Soderstrom go. I wouldn't want to see Rooker go. I wouldn't want to see Langoliers go. But sometimes you got to give some up to get a little back. I totally understand that. But I think there's other pathways they can do that in terms of trades that would be more realistic. Again, the nature of this segment was to have trades that would turn your head. And these would all, if I saw this, we'd be jumping right here on A's Day, giving our immediate reaction. I don't know how I'd like it, to be honest. So we'll have to keep our eyes peeled on the moves that are set to go down in terms of free agency and any trades that the A's may be involved in, and looking forward to seeing what impact they'll have for the 2026 season. Okay, let's take a short break. We're going to do a quick ad read for the Holiday Inn Sacramento Downtown Arena as they housed us for a weekend to be able to cover hotspots around Sacramento, as well as creating content at Sutter Health Park leading up to a A's home game. So we appreciate them for supporting us. We'll support them right back by discussing why, or reading an ad as to why they are the preferred destination to stay in terms of location and area in Sacramento. You'll be glad you did. So we'll do a quick ad read for them and then get to our next segment of this player in A's history. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this. Stay at our downtown Sacramento hotel. Stay, work, and play at Holiday Inn Sacramento Downtown Arena near the shopping, dining, and entertainment of the old historic Sacramento waterfront. A 15-minute drive from Sacramento International Airport, our downtown hotel is a few blocks from the Golden One Center and Downtown Commons and a short walk from the California State Capitol and Safe Credit Union Convention Center. Host meetings and events in our boardrooms and ballrooms. Work out in our fitness center and take a dip in our rooftop pool. Enjoy breakfast at Cypress Grill or gather with friends and colleagues for dinner and drinks. Unwind in our comfortable rooms and suites with amenities and cityscape views. We are the ideal choice for your Sacramento adventure. All right, let's wrap up today's show, get to our last segment, this player in A's history. For today's edition of this segment, we are taking it back to the 1950s and telling the story of Bobby Shantz. He is a native of Pottstown, Pennsylvania, born September 26th, 1925. Still going strong. Actually celebrated his 100th birthday this year. I think we shouted him out on A's Day for a previous episode. So once again, happy 100 years. Looking forward to many more for you, Mr. Shantz. Pottstown, his hometown, is a city 40 miles northwest of Philadelphia. His father worked at a Bethlehem steel mill. In 1927, his brother Wilmer Jr. was born, and in 1929, the family moved to a larger property in the suburbs with a big backyard where they can play sports. At the age of 6, Bobby suddenly became sick one day. He was sent to the hospital with a high fever and was not expected to live through the night. However, he did survive, and his mother remained by his bedside for a week. Bobby would go on to completely recover and enjoy a happy childhood. In addition to baseball and football, his favorite pursuits were fishing at nearby Sanatoga Lake, taking part in family snowball fights, and trapping small animals. Despite economic tough times, the Shantz were always able to obtain sports equipment by redeeming hundreds of cereal box tops given to them by a friend of the family, a cook at a local school. Bobby, from there, would end up organizing a baseball team called the Sanatoga Pee-wees. As a 4'4" teenager, he pitched for a neighborhood team, Lower Pottsgrove. The family took trips to Philadelphia during his childhood to watch the A's play, and Bobby's only dream was to play professional baseball. Could he play baseball professionally one day? Being so much smaller than the other boys? He would have to find out. Shantz made the Pottstown High School baseball team as an outfielder. His manager actually told him to forget ever pitching because he was too small. Keep a note of that in your back pocket. He'd never shown off the snappy curveball he'd been practicing for years as a child with his brother in their backyard. He played well for the high school team, though it did not have a good record. He was also a high diver on the varsity swim team. Perhaps there's always been a wonder that Bobby's serious childhood illness had impaired his growth. For when he graduated from high school in 1943, he was actually still less than 5 feet tall. He got a job as a busboy in the cafeteria of the nearby Jacobs Aircraft plant, and he made the plant baseball team, though he sat on the bench. The family moved to Philly when Bobby's father took a job at a shipyard there. The family's relocation seemed to be a good break for both Bobby and his brother Billy. Their new neighborhood was a hotbed of sports activities and gave the brothers more opportunities to play ball. Bobby played sandlot baseball and Pop Warner football and continued to grow. In 1944, he got a $75 a week job at the Diston Saw Company as a glazer, shining saws. His draft board called him in, this is for the military, but he was rejected for service because he was 1 inch below the minimum 5-foot height requirement. Though Bobby was short in stature, his hands were comparatively large and strong, which helped him to excel at all sports that he played. In the spring of 1944, Bobby played for the Holmesburg Ramblers, a youth baseball team that played in the competitive Quaker City League. He played center field, and his brother Billy was a catcher, dropped out of high school in the 10th grade. One day, Bobby threw batting practice, and the team's manager saw his fine overhand curveball with its sharp downward break and immediately added him to the pitching staff. From there, that season, Bobby compiled a 9-1 win-loss record and played the outfield in games he didn't pitch, batting .485 from the cleanup spot. Meanwhile, Shantz had grown an inch, enough to pass his Army physical, and was sworn in on December 28, 1944. After 3 months of basic training, he headed to Fort Knox, Kentucky, to be trained to drive tanks. In June of 1945, 2 months before the end of World War II, Bobby arrived in the Philippines. At camp in Batangas, he played interdivisional ball, sharing the pitching duties with the White Sox Gordon Maltzberger. Later, he played against a team of touring major leaguers at Rizal Stadium in Manila. Shantz pitched and lost the game 4-2, but his solid performance in that game against established major leaguers helped to build that confidence that he can achieve that dream. He returned home to work at the Saw Company in the fall of 1946. He played quarterback and punted for a Pop Warner League football team, but hurt his back and quit football for good so he would not jeopardize his baseball career. In 1947, Shantz signed to play sandlot baseball for the Souderton, Pennsylvania team, the Nibs. The Nibs team in the East Penn League rated equivalent to a Class B minor league team. He went 8-0 and 1-1 in the postseason. In the championship games, Shantz pitched a 4-hitter, hit a double, and scored a run. Fans held a Bobby Shantz Day and showered him with cash and gifts. His reputation from there soared and skyrocketed. The Tigers and Browns offered contracts for Shantz to play in the Class D minor leagues, but he refused and was not interested in them. Tony Parise, a former A's catcher and Bobby's battery mate on the Souderton Nibs team, warned him to not sign a D contract as quoted, fearing that teams that offered wouldn't take him seriously if he would go play in a league of that level. Tony recommended Shantz to A scout Harry O'Donnell, as did Souderton's third baseman Bill Hockenberry. O'Donnell signed Shantz to an A-ball contract in November 1947. Bobby was also convinced in the process, he convinced the A's that his brother Billy was a good catcher and that they should sign him too as part of the deal. At least he wouldn't be lonely. In Lincoln, Nebraska, in the Class A Western League. Bobby was 22 years old and Billy was 20. The A's accepted that deal. In his first year of professional baseball, Bobby was the talk of the league. He pitched 28 games and went 18-7 and a whip of 1.09, striking out 212 batters and 214 innings, and had an ERA of 2.82. In a game against Des Moines, he faced 32 batters and only threw 17 pitches for balls. After just one minor league season, Shantz went north from spring training with Philadelphia in 1947. During his rookie season, he was sent down for more experience, but was quickly recalled when another pitcher was injured. After a brief relief appearance on May 1st, Shantz relieved Carl Scheib on May 6th against the Detroit Tigers with the bases loaded and none out in the fourth inning, and held the Tigers scoreless for the next 9 innings. That's right, he relieved 9 innings from there. Definitely a different time in baseball, though he did walk 7 along his way. In the top of the 13th inning, the A's went ahead 5-3. Shantz allowed 2 hits and a run in the bottom half of the inning, but would go on to win his first Major League game 5-4. He would finish his rookie season with a 6-8 win-loss record and a 3.40 ERA. In 1950, he went 8-14, with the A's being 52 and 102 respectively on that year. For the first half of 1951, he was a so-so 8-8, but then won 10 of his next 12 games and was the American League's most effective pitcher for the second half of that season. He was chosen for the American League team in the All-Star game, but he didn't make an appearance in the game itself. In his first 3 Major League seasons, Shantz improved from year to year. He was doing very well with a fastball, curve, and changeup, but felt he needed another pitch. That pitch was the knuckleball. He also threw a variety of different types of curveballs. He was best known for his classic over-the-top curve that broke sharply down and as much as a foot across, but he also threw a tighter breaking curveball and on occasion what was called a nickel curve, thrown more from the side rather than your typical prototypical curveball, which came the birth of the eventual pitch named the slider. Shantz had a breakout year in 1952. After 18 starts, he was 15-3. By his 16th complete game, he had racked up 3 shutouts. A person's size was fair game back then, and sports writers referred to him in terms like the little southpaw and the toy pitcher. The press speculated that he could become the first 30-game winner in 18 years. He was named to the American League All-Star Game this season as well, for the second time, this time with Shantz pitching in the All-Star Game, which was played in Philadelphia. He would go on to finish the season 24-7 and was named the American League Most Valuable Player, garnering 83% of the vote. 5 days before the end of that season, on September 23rd, he broke his left wrist when he was hit by a fastball from the Senators' Walt Masterson. He was hit by a pitch when pitchers were still required to hit. That was a very indoctrinated part of the game that changed rather recently. The injury did eventually heal over the offseason. Shantz would go on to start 33 games, completed 27, and pitched 5 shutouts. In 279 innings, he struck out 152 batters and allowed 77 earned runs for a 2.48 earned run average. On May 21st, 1953, pitching against the Red Sox, Shantz injured his left shoulder. A tendon had separated from the bone, and it was the beginning of a difficult 3 seasons from there. Until his body healed completely, it was a rough go of it. Shantz made only 16 starts in 1953 and was 5-9 with a 4.09 ERA. On opening day of 1954, Shantz had a 5-2 lead over the Red Sox when he re-injured his shoulder. He pitched in only one other game that season. In 1955, the Athletics' first year in Kansas City, he was 5-10, and in 1956, in which he pitched almost entirely in relief, he was 2-7. On April 29th, 1955, Shantz pitched a shutout, his first since 1952, before a crowd of 33,471 in Kansas City to defeat the Yankees 6-0. On April 19, 1956, in one of only 2 starts he made that season, Shantz 5-hit the Tigers, and the A's won 4-1. After that, he experienced pain in his right side, and manager Lou Boudreau made him a reliever. for the 1957 season. Shantz was part of a 13-player trade, signaling the end of his time with the A's that would go down between the A's and the Yankees. Yankees manager Casey Stengel intended to use him exclusively as a relief pitcher, but an injury to left-handed pitcher Whitey Ford forced him to use Bobby as a starter. Shantz would go on to pitch 8 more seasons before being traded away from the A's, pitching for the Yankees, the Pirates, Houston, St. Louis, Chicago, and Philadelphia, ending where it all started, but with a different franchise, as now the Phillies were in town after the A's moved to Kansas City. Would go on to retire prior to the 1965 season, where the Phillies wanted him to return, but he chose retirement. Instead, completed a 16-year career. So over his 16-year career, he assembled a line of appearing in 537 games, with 171 of those games he started. 119 wins against 99 losses with a 3.38 ERA. In 1,935 and two-thirds innings pitched, he issued 643 walks, struck out 1,072 batters, and pitched to a 1.26 whip. Over his A's career, which covered half of it, he pitched 8 seasons for the Athletics. He appeared in 220 games, making 124 starts, a 69-65 win-loss record with a 3.80 ERA. In 1,166 and two-thirds innings pitched, he issued 424 walks, struck out 566 batters, and pitched to a 1.34 whip. Over his career, he ended up being the 1952 American League MVP, like we mentioned earlier on in this segment. He also went on to add to his trophy case of being an 8-time Gold Glove Award winner at the pitching position, a 3-time All-Star, and he won the World Series in 1958. After his baseball career came to an end, he went on to manage a dairy bar and restaurant in Chalfont, PA. He worked until retiring in 1986 and regularly would pick up golfing from there, golfing with his friends, also former big leaguers, Curt Simmons and Robin Roberts. In 1994, Shantz would become the 41st member of the Philadelphia Wall of Fame. And then in 2010, he was inducted into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. So that is the story of Bobby Shantz. Truly the clear depiction of perseverance and competitive drive. From a young age, he was always told he wouldn't meet the height requirements for achieving his dreams. He was too small to be a pitcher. He was too small to be in the Army. It seemed like there were factors that necessarily they weren't taking in all of the ability that he can bring to the table with his skill set, but they just looked at superficial traits that they thought would be a detriment to him having consistent success. Well, he proved a lot of people wrong. He was an impact pitcher at the major league level and completed a 16-year career. That's in such a small percentage of guys that ever played this game that can say that themselves. So I think this was a great story to tell as a story of perseverance and competitive drive, because he was always someone that, from stories that I've seen, that is someone that always wanted to be the best at what he can do and just help the team win. And he knew that he had the drive and the ability to be a consistent quality pitcher. He just needed his foot in the door and the right people to see what he could bring to the table. Once that happened, and if it weren't for some arm issues, I think he would have had an even better career, maybe even closer to a Hall of Fame career. But certainly this is someone that's going to live on in the lore of A's baseball and Major League Baseball for many years to come. Like I mentioned, he celebrated his 100th birthday this year, a true legend of the game, and I'm glad we were able to tell his story today. So that wraps up another edition of This Player in A's History, talking about Bobby Shantz. And with that brings us to the conclusion of another edition of A's Day. Again, we appreciate each and every one of you kicking off your Friday, kicking off your weekend with us here at A's Day. It is a pleasure sharing our thoughts on everything A's baseball and getting creative as we can, especially during these off-season times. On today's show, we discussed the one transaction that the A's completed of recent, where they signed right-handed pitcher Wander Suero to a minor league contract. He has been assigned to AAA Las Vegas. We discussed what kind of impact he could have at the major league level, as well as his previous career leading up to the 2026 season before he signed on here with the A's. And then we explored we had some fun. We explored 3 hypothetical trades that would certainly turn heads trades that I don't think would actually happen, but would have a large magnitude for the A's and the trade partners that they would line up with. And then for this edition of This Player in A's History, we went back to the 1950s and talked about pitcher Bobby Shantz. We'll be back on Monday's show for another edition of A's Day, so we'll be sure to kick off the show with any transactions that may transpire between today and Monday's episode. Again, it's probably going to be pretty quiet on that front, and I think once December hits and once the winter meetings come and go, I think you're going to see the A's, and you're going to see a lot of teams across baseball be a lot more active. And then from there, hopefully we've got a jam-packed show. Hopefully the A's start making some moves in their bullpen. Maybe they bring in an impact bat, but I don't think it'll happen this soon. I think that'll happen next month. So we'll be back talking about that. And then we're going to do a little bit of a trivia segment. So we'll explain it a little bit in better detail on Monday. But we kind of introduced it where we had, I believe it was a Sporkle segment to see how many, it was a category, I think, of A's on the home run leader, something like that. It was quite a while ago. We're going to do something similar of that ilk on Monday's show. We're getting as creative as we can. And then we'll see what else we have for you. Maybe we'll have a surprise segment where we'll save it for Friday's show. But nevertheless, we'll be back talking A's baseball on Monday, as we love doing with you, the lovely audience. That's all I have for today. Once again, I'm your host, Joe Grata. Hope you're all enjoying your Thanksgiving break. And for those that had to go into work today, appreciate your hard work and dedication, and hope this is the start of a nice weekend for you. We'll be back on Monday. Hope you all stay happy, healthy, and well. And we're excited to be back talking A's baseball with you in just a mere couple days. Holy Toledo, let's go A's.